Recording, please. Okay, so welcome to this week's Data Protection Forum, where we're going to be talking about the hidden risks, simple steps to strengthen your business. Why is this important? Well, because we recently ran a survey on LinkedIn, and when we asked how prepared is your business for cyber threats, the rather worrying bit was that whilst 25% of people said they felt rock solid, um, 56% of people said they thought they might have gaps. 13% of people had no idea at all, but perhaps most worryingly, 6% recognize that they are probably high risk. And so it couldn't be a better time, really, I think, to run through this with you all and show you what can be done. So just to say, I'm Keith Blunt from Security, and today we're spotlighting the most common and overlooked data security gaps, how GDPR and PECR, PECR, the Privacy and Electronic Communications regulations, protect your business, and what practical steps you can take right away. So today we're going to cover common data security gaps, how GDPR and PECR safeguard your business, what happens if you ignore them, some simple actionable steps you can take, and then we have any questions and answers. For those of you who are watching the recording, one of the benefits of attending live into these sessions is that you get to ask me questions on the spot. But I recognize that life happens and you can't always get to the live recording. So if you can't make that, but you have a question, please do feel free to reach out to me by message on LinkedIn, or the contact details that I'll share at the end of the presentation, and I'll be more than happy to try and help with your questions. So let's begin with the gaps you don't see coming. Gaps you don't see coming are, and these are just a few of them, but they're probably the most common. And you need to think of your business like layered defenses, that holes in one layer aren't a problem unless they line up. And that's when breaches slip through. So what sort of things are we talking about? We're talking about shared logins and weak access controls. It should be a really, 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 really strict rule in your business that you don't share logins and usernames and passwords to any system that you have. If someone needs access to it, they should have their own access. If you do have guest people who you want to give access to, set up a guest user, but don't share the login of an active user. It's so simple. Make sure that your systems, particularly your operating systems on your network, and on your server, if you've got a local server, are unpatched or outdated. Systems don't exist. So you've done all the latest patches. Your IT department are on top of it. They're applying the new patches or new updates from Microsoft and other suppliers as they become available. Because often the reason that software companies issue those updates is because someone has found a security hole where potentially bad actors could get in. And if you don't update your system, well, then, you're leaving yourself wide open in a sense, particularly, and I know some businesses still do, if you're still using Windows 10, which is no longer officially supported by Microsoft and isn't getting updates anymore, then you really need to think about what you're doing and how you can protect it. There are third-party options there, so it's not the end of the world, but do be aware of it. Make sure that your team aren't using any unsanctioned third-party tools or applications. Make sure you're not in a situation where somebody's gone on the internet and they've seen something and they think, oh, that looks useful, and they download it onto their local machine and potentially put your data at risk. One of the biggest ones is having a lack of data minimization strategies, and data minimization strategies have two benefits, really. Well, three benefits, I guess. First one is that wherever you store your data, and particularly now people tend to store their data in the cloud, space in the cloud costs money. And so if you can minimize your data, you minimize the amount of storage that you need, you lower your storage costs. That's the first one. The second one, though, and perhaps more important, is if you don't have the data there, and you do unfortunately have a data breach, well, then there's less data for people to steal. And the third one, again, is just making sure that, again, if you have a data subject access request where someone requests data from you and they ask for data from 5 years ago and you don't keep data from 5 years ago, then it's very simple. You don't need to carry out the whole thing of doing a data subject access request for that person. You just write back to them saying, sorry, we don't retain any personally identifiable information from that long ago. And the final most common thing is no documented policies or audit trail. And again, this is really, really important. Lots of businesses that I deal with, and first time I go to see them or I carry out an audit online, is to find that actually they're doing things right, but they've just never documented it. And it's important to document those policies. Why? A, because if somebody like me or an ICO inspector comes to inspect your business, then it's nice and easy. You pull the folder off the shelf or pull up the file on your PC and say, there you go. But the second reason as well is because whoever's doing your job isn't, and that's you, of course, might not be there forever. And if you leave, although you might know the policy off by heart, you could recite it like we could recite a nursery rhyme. That's no use if you're now working for another business 200 miles away, or even just down the street. So do make sure you've documented your policies and procedures. So we can't talk about breaches and security without talking about the human element. Because, and there's some examples here about email, because that's just a good example, but humans, not hackers, are the biggest risk, and most lapses are simple mistakes or avoidable lapses. So what are these things? Well, one is accidental disclosures, sending an email to the wrong recipient. That's a data breach in itself, particularly if that recipient is a consumer. But the other one, and the more common one I see, is people who CC 100 people into an email because they're doing a marketing push or because it's just, you're promoting your latest customer seminar or whatever, and use CCC. So suddenly anyone receiving that email now has 100 other people's email addresses, which they have no right to see. So if you're doing any email really that you're sending outside the organization, it's always best practice to use BCC instead, and then no one can see where those other emails have gone. The next thing, though, is something you might not be aware of, is something called phishing. And this is where you get an email which looks like it is genuine. It looks like it's come from your accounts department, or it looks like it's come from one of your suppliers, or it looks like it's come from one of your customers. But in fact, it hasn't. It's come from a bad actor. And some of these phishing attempts are very, very clever. I've seen ones that pretend to be from the AA, the Automobile Association, and if you click on any of the links in the email, it takes you to the AA site. So you think it's genuine until you click on the link where it's actually asking for your information. And then suddenly there's a form on their site, on the bad actors site, which probably looks like the genuine site. But it isn't, and you're actually losing your information going that way. The same is true with social engineering. You can get bad actors on social media who look for all the world like they are genuine, and they're not. So having some basic training in how to detect phishing is really well worthwhile. And I mean, one free tip is, if you get an email that pretends to be from, I don't know, let's say it pretends to be from the BBC, or pretends to be from Barclays Bank, and yet the email address is a Gmail address, chances are 99% that's not genuine. So don't respond to it. Don't click on any of the links. Make sure your team know, your staff know. Do not click on links in emails you're suspicious about. Even more important, don't download any attachments from emails that you're uncertain about. If you're unsure, delete it. If it's really important, they'll send it again. Chances are, though, they won't send it again because it was never genuine in the first place. And the other thing with the human factor is weak passwords or reusing them. You have people who put in passwords like password or password 123. Don't do that. A bad actor is going to track that immediately. Even if you have a complicated password that's 12 characters long with a special character and maybe a number as well. Whilst that's better, it's going to take a bad actor longer to get in. It's still not perfect. If you have a really complicated password, but it's a random mix of letters and special characters and numbers, that tends to defeat the purpose because people write it down, and more often than not, they write it down, put it on a post-it note, and stick it on their screen. Um, current best practice for for passwords is to have a password which is made up of 3 totally unrelated words, and you can join them all together if you want. To long string, one long string of characters, but 3 unrelated words is the best way currently to have passwords, because the difference in time between cracking it and not cracking it is many, many millions. And so you make it more safe. You can never, ever, if anyone ever says, we can make your system 100% hacker proof, they're lying. Because you can't. But what you can do is make it as strong as you can. I always liken this to when you park your car in a public car park. You park your car in a public car park, even though the most security devices on it you want, you can't stop somebody stealing it. Because if someone really, really wants it, they'll come along with a lorry with one of these hoists on the back, like they used to deliver material from builders' merchants. They'll just, or when they tow cars away, they'll just put the chains around your wheels, lift your car up, and put it on their truck and drive away. Okay, you might have a tracker, so you can find hopefully where they've taken it, but nonetheless, they've still taken it. So, like with your car, you can't make a car that is impossible to steal. You can make it more difficult to steal than the one next to it. And thieves are after an easy time. So if they spot the one next door hasn't got a security device or their alarm light's not flashing, they're going to nick that one because that's easier. So let's talk a little bit about GDPR. It's more than just red tape. Probably, hopefully, everyone watching this knows this already, but GDPR applies to all UK and EU data handling. It empowers individuals because it holds businesses accountable. And its key principles are transparency, purpose limitation, and security. But really, GDPR is all about building trust, handling data in a way that's fair, transparent, and secure. Just one thing I'd add here, which is something I only learned this week from a client who was unfortunate enough to suffer a serious fire in their premises. And they thought, that's okay, because we've got our backups in our fireproof safe. what they discovered was, and this was totally new to me, I'd not come across this before, is that not all fireproof safes are heat proof. So it might stop the fire getting to your material, but if your material, let's say, is on any media that's got plastic in it, so if it's like a CD, if you're backing up onto CDs or you're backing up onto magnetic tape, or however you're backing up, if you're backing up and you're keeping it on site, don't rely on your fireproof safe, because, or check, the manufacturer of your fireproof safe says it's heat proof, because this particular client, they were keeping their backups of really important data on DVDs, which they were probably doing. They were making 2 copies every day. They were, and they were keeping them in their fireproof safe. I mean, they should have taken one off site, but they were keeping both of them in their fireproof safe. After their fire, they discovered that the DVDs weren't readable because the material had, disintegrated because of the heat. So, a fireproof safe is not, well, it's great, not necessarily going to give you 100% protection. So then we talk about PECA, the Privacy and Electronic Communications Regulation, the forgotten partner. Because people talk about GDPR, they don't tend to talk about PECA so much. PECA is actually the bit that controls consent to consumers. And the important thing with this is that only yes is yes. Unless a customer, unless a person has opted in to your marketing, and preferably double opt-in. So you not only get them to opt in, you ask them for their email address, you send them an email back to check their email address is genuine, which is good practice anyway, because otherwise you're mailing a dustbin rather than a customer or potential customer. But only yes is yes. You must have consent, and it covers marketing, emails, texts, cookies, and calls, phone calls. Consent is key, as I say, especially for a business to consumer, not so much business to business. And PECA is more often enforced than GDPR. If you look through the ICO website to look at penalties that they've served, a good number of them are under PECA. Don't actually find that many under GDPR. The good news at the moment is that, unlike GDPR, where penalties can be 4% of your global turnover or just under £18 million, whichever is the larger, penalties under PECA are currently limited to £500,000. It's still a lot of money, but they're limited to £500,000. But the new data use and reform bill, which is making its way slowly through Parliament, because the House of Lords is examining it almost line by line, as they should, of course, but it has slowed it down. When that becomes law, unless there's a major change, as it stands at the moment, when that becomes law, the penalties for PECA in the UK will become the same as the penalties for GDPR. So, what if you ignore them? So, as I say, GDPR, potentially get fined of up to 20 million euros or 4% global turnover. Are you going to be fined that much? In the UK, nah. You're still going to be fined, maybe, possibly. They don't actually find that many people, still to be said, for GDPR breaches. However, if you're in Spain or Italy, you do get fined a lot, and almost every breach gets fined, particularly in Spain. Spain, for some reason, loves imposing financial penalties. PECA, as I say, fines are up to £500,000. But here's the bit people don't see, because people sometimes say, well, the ICO, they don't really do anything, do they? They don't fine people. No, they don't. And that's something they should improve on. And in fact, I'm hoping to become part of a group to lobby them to do that more. But this is a cost. A client of mine had an investigation from the ICO. If you think HMRC investigations are hard work, ICO investigations are even harder work and they move very slowly. But for my client, by the time they'd added their accountant's time, their IT provider's time, and my time, just complying with the audit cost them close on £7,000 and a lot of their staff time. So, yes, you might look and say, oh, it's only a fine, but it still has a cost. Investigations and audits take up time, and time costs money. And also, of course, there's always the reputational damage and the potential that you lose your customers' trust. And trust is one of the things, as we all know, you can take years to build, but you can lose it in a second. So, it is important. So some real world snapshots, and again, these are all from PECA, actually. Again, I say PECA has far more penalties than GDPR itself. There was a company that got 60,000 fine for unlawful email marketing. An NHS trust got fined. This was a mixture really of GDPR and PECA. They got fined after sending emails to the wrong recipients. They did a bulk email and sent it to the wrong mailing list. And a small retailer that I'm aware of is currently being investigated over poor cookie controls on their website. I say small, they're a £3 million company, but it's relatively small. The good news, that's to be some good news, it's all fixable. I always say to my clients, don't panic. You don't need to do it all at once. Focus on the high-risk areas first, because small improvements can equal big protection, big improvements. So 5 quick wins to secure your business. First is audit your data and your data flow. It's a requirement under GDPR anyway. It's something called Article 30. It's your data, registered data processing. And it is so, so important because you can't protect what you don't know. If you don't know you've got data, you're not going to protect it because you don't know it exists. So think about your data. And I always say to people, when you're thinking about your data, think about the flow of the data too. What data do you collect? Where do you store it? Where do people look at it? Who looks at it? Why? If you can't find a good reason why, well then why are you holding that data? Why are you processing that data? It's just costing you money, apart from anything else. Refresh your privacy and cookie notices. Do make sure they're up to date. Provide basic staff training. Going back to privacy and cookie policy for the moment, I had a client this week who had their website. They had a privacy policy. Wonderful. Set their privacy policy, still in places, had square brackets in it, and inside the square brackets saying insert your company name here. So they just got that template from somewhere, hadn't even edited it, just put it up. No, that's not privacy. That's not a privacy notice. Sorry, this isn't. Provide basic staff training. As an argument to say all your staff should know something about GDPR. And for any of our clients that we train, we produce a little booklet that is called GDPR for all employees. It's really, really simple. It doesn't do anything in depth, but at least even, one of my clients, as an example, even their forklift truck drivers know what GDPR is and who in the business to send people to talk about it. Because the other thing is assign a data protection lead. Don't make that person, unless you legally have to, a DPO, a data protection officer, because that has certain legal connotations under GDPR. But do assign someone as your head of data protection or your data protection manager or whatever you want to call them. But do assign somebody to that role, somebody to take responsibility. It should really be somebody in your management team. So where do we come in? We help you get all your ducks in a row. We offer friendly hands-on GDPR support. We do training that sticks, and we make it fun. We have a slogan of, if it's fun, it gets done. If it's a bore, it's a chore. And so we keep it fun. Our training certainly isn't a snooze fest, although if I'm training in person rather than online, you might get one of our logoed pillows or cushions thrown at you, because we know GDPR can be boring, but we make our training so it's not boring. And of course, we offer ongoing DPO services and GDPR services to keep you protected. And we will soon be offering phishing protection as well. So with that, I'm going to stop the presentation in a second. Any questions? And I will stop sharing my screen. And I see we do have a couple of people here now. Sarah and Tim, great to see you here. If you've got any questions, please fire away.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about backups and how people have on-site or what I call local backups from an IT perspective. So I'm always saying to people, they say, right, we've got this bit of kit in the corner of a room, it's fine. It's in, particularly in pubs, I say pubs and restaurants, they're prime examples. But they forget that they can fail and they can go wrong, and when they do, it's when they need it.
Yeah.
And the other one that I think is when you also mentioned about the biggest weaknesses people when information gets leaked. For example, the place I worked at, a major director of a multinational company put a USB stick, this is in London, USB stick in his back pocket, in his trouser, takes a tube home to and from home because it's London, so you park in a car costs you an arm and a leg, and by the time you park it, etc. Guess where the USB stick fell out?
Yeah.
We as contractors, I was working for one of the first line contractors, got blamed for it. So they locked it all down for us on their own machine, so we couldn't copy to USB anymore, which affected what we did. It was us, it was a client for the company itself.
Yeah.
The client, not just the one of ours, but so it's interesting when you say that. I always preach to people, don't rely on having a
Yeah.
I always set something up for them, whether they ask for it or not, as part of my package. A, a secure server that isn't, it's out there, it's in the cloud, but it's a bolted down encrypted. We won't go there, like 4 layers of security on it, you name it. But I have to, if I need it, it's there, and it backs up. So yeah, I can fully appreciate when you were saying that. I was kind of smirking because I've been the awkward quiet moment where they needed to find a scapegoat, I'll say. But
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the USB key thing, yeah, is common. I mean, if you go to the lost property office at somewhere like Waterloo Station in London and see how many USB keys they have, it's phenomenal. Um, and and it's so easy. The other thing that always strikes me, Tim, and I don't know whether this is your experience too, is the number of people who set up a backup system, which is great. It runs every day or twice a day, which is great. They never actually tried to restore from that. And
yeah,
uh,
I've had that a few times. My background is always good. I started out, this is why I was going through the premise of, do you have a backup? That's always one of my first questions for a new client. Um, is I always went in, I started out going in after it had gone wrong. So can you
yeah,
get this back? What have we done wrong? Why have we not got this? Why have we not got that? So exactly what like you were saying. And I always say the word GDPR, and people think I'm crazy. Is okay, my own part is technically quite small compared to the clients I deal with, fortunately, but I still have 4 backups.
yeah,
Not one. And they think I'm mad. It's like, no, I've got that, all that, all that, all that. And yes, I test them once a month.
yeah,
It,
yeah.
so yeah, exactly that. So yeah, that's what I could go off range on this, but you get the idea where I'm coming from with
Oh,
that. It's
absolutely, Tim. Yeah, yeah. No, you're preaching to the converted because yeah, it is so important. Sarah, good to see you. Do you have any questions at all?
Sorry. Hi there.
Hi,
No, I
Sarah.
don't actually. No, no. Hi there. Hi. Nice to see you. No, I don't have any questions at the moment. No,
Oh,
thank you.
okay, that's fine.
Useful. Yeah,
Brilliant. Yeah, no, please, you found it useful.
thank
So
you.
so just a reminder for everyone that we are here every 2 weeks on at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday morning. Do watch out for our posts on LinkedIn and Eventbrite, where we put the details of the next event. Please do book on. And as Tim and Sarah have done, please do come along to the session live if you possibly can, because like with Tim, it's possible to have an exchange of views, have a exchange of questions and answers, and that's really part of the whole reason we're here. So yeah, if you can make it along live, please do, because although you watch the recording, and of course I'm more than happy that you're watching the recording, you don't get that opportunity to come and join us and ask the questions. So as I say, if you can make it live, please do. It's 9 o'clock on a Wednesday every 2 weeks, right throughout the year, apart from Christmas, of course, because we don't do it that way. But because even though I make GDPR fun, I can't make it as fun as Christmas. So we don't do it that way. But great to see you here, Tim and Sarah. Hope to see you here again. Really glad to hear you have found it useful. And
Brilliant.
Dorcas, can you stop the recording, please?